Hey everyone! So I wanted to give you guys this little update. This is obviously not going to change anything in regards to the playthrough. I just kind of want to let you guys know what I've actually been doing while not doing the playthrough. I have been preparing for the playthrough, and I will get to that in a bit. But this is my Spiritborn, as you can see. I've actually been working on all the stuff in regards to the season, all the things that there are to do. In case you guys are wondering, as you can see here, I have finished the entire season journey and collected all the rewards. I have even finished collecting all of the blessings. The entire season is complete. There's only one objective I haven't actually finished, and it's this one right here, but I didn't need to. I've also been able to do some other things as well. I'm not going to try and show you guys some of the other stuff because some of that is spoilery, and I want to actually show you guys that later on when we get to the actual stuff in the expansion. I want to try to avoid spoiling that stuff for you guys. But I figured you guys were curious how it was going and what I was doing. This is basically, if you can see here, this is the main set that you get for doing the season. I've just recolored it to match the wings that I have. The staff is actually part of a pack that you can purchase in regards to one of the Spiritborn themes, which is the eagle. That's why that particular weapon looks like that. In case you're wondering how my character is actually doing, it's actually doing pretty well. It's pretty strong right now. Just in town right now, you can see some of my stats are actually pretty high. This is on Torment 4, by the way. And this is only in town. Once we actually leave town or go into battle, then things would change. But you probably saw in the last one that I was kind of messing around leveling my Spiritborn, doing a pure centipede poison build. Well, that only got me so far. And it reached a point where I just realized there was no way I could take this any farther because I was barely killing things on higher difficulty. And it was taking a long time. So I basically caved and looked to try and utilize a better, higher ranked top build. And what I ended up doing was, at the time, based on what I had, I first tried what was called a Gorilla Thorns build, which focused on specifically ability called Rock Splitter, where you would basically be doing Rock Splitter the whole time, causing thorns damage around you. It was decent, but it wasn't super strong. What I instead ended up doing, once I got some other certain piece of gear, was I then transitioned to what is known as the Crushing Hands build, which is considered one of the top builds in the entire game right now. I don't know if they have since patched it or nerfed it or fixed it, because the thing is, some of the top builds in regards to the Spiritborn are actually bugged. That's why they're so strong. It's one of the reasons why the Evade build, or the Roly-Poly build as it was called by some, like Rax, was considered so strong because it was actually bugged. The animation was bugged, so it did more damage than it was supposed to. Once they fixed it, it was considered a nerf because it was no longer doing more because of the bugged animation. And sometimes that's basically how some of these top builds actually are. The other is the Quill Volley build, where you're doing just tossing out Quill Volley, not Seeker. Where is it? Here it is. You're just tossing out Quill Volley just all over the place and it's doing a ton of damage. But the build I'm doing is what is known as the Crushing Hands build, which is basically focused on this. And there are different variants of this build depending on what you have access to in terms of what your gear is. There's 4 or 5 different variants that you can do and work on. One is your leveling. So you can, if you want to make a fresh Spiritborn and then start working on this build while leveling, you can absolutely go ahead and make a leveling version of this build. Just follow the guide in terms of okay, when I get to this level, I put a point into this, I put a point into this. Just follow the guide along, and you can find it on maxroll.gg. It's a very nice, accurate, excellent, well-designed build. In terms of guide, well-designed guide, These guys really do the work when it comes to trying to make these guides actually easy to follow. And you can then go ahead and once you get to the end game, there's a variant where depending on certain ancients you have, but you also have to make sure that you're collecting, of course, your various different legendaries in terms of the codex, that you have access to a whole bunch of them in your codex, so you can be able to actually, like, you know, go ahead and put the correct ones on there, which you can then, of course, collect here in the occultist and make sure that you put on the specific ones. Now, it's also recommended for the higher ones that you make sure that you keep collecting these aspects and keep continuing to upgrade them. As you can see, I don't have them all fully upgraded, so my build is not as strong as it possibly could be because, of course, there's all kinds of various different little min-max things to make your build super strong. Building up all the aspects of the highest level, getting all the highest possible rolls, getting pieces of gear with really, like, multiple greater affixes. There's multiple different things that you can do. There's, of course, other specific uniques that you can try and get, especially ancient ones, to try and fully take advantage of the build because of certain things that they take advantage of. Like this, for example, the Rod of Kek W that Rax calls it. This is not the best. Like, this is not the best version it could be, but it's a pretty good one. In regards to, it's a 2.8% on that passive, as you can see. When the highest it could be is 3%. What I've learned is that sometimes what greater affixes you get are not what's most important. What's most important is the passive. So if you can get a 3% with the correct greater affix, then you're going to be in a great spot. But what matters is getting as high of the passive roll as you can get when it drops. If you get one that's like 1.4%, don't even bother at that point. It's not considered good at all because you're not getting as most out of this as you possibly could be. 2.8 is pretty great. 3% is like, oh man, that's almost god tier. Being able to also, like, if you want to get the greater effects with either max resource, crit strike damage, I mean, specific ones, you're going to see, like, in terms of the max comes into play. And then, of course, being able to get some other really important pieces here, like a Banished Lord's Talisman that I got with 60% on it, which was just, like, incredibly lucky on my part. With max life or attack speed, you could also get a greater fix to max life instead of +4 to core skills or overpower damage, which is what I'm basically running is the overpower variant of this build. So there's so much that goes into how this build works. I also got extremely lucky and fortunate. You can also see my stash here. I am absurdly fortunate and lucky that I was able to basically get one of each ancient. As you can see, I was able to get an Andariel's Visage. I got an Air Perdition. I got that glaive that I don't really use anymore. I have my Tyrael's Might, but I'm not even using it because it's not really what I should be using. I have a Ring of Starless Skies, but it's not really recommended for this build. It's recommended for other builds. But what I am using is the Shroud of False Death, which is amazing. And, of course, the Harlequin Crest, one of the best pieces of gear that you can get in the entire game. But I'm also... And then you go into some of the other, like, okay, then you have to find other specific pieces to get this build to work. And, of course, you can see other people are constantly posting in the trade channel, like, hey, do you need this with this many greater affixes? Which is like, okay, like, it can, you know, depending on how much. Like, I don't have that much gold, honestly. Like, I've got 549 million gold, which in this game right now is not a lot. Compared to others that have, like, several billion gold, you know? But sometimes it is, like, I will say that they've made it where it's very accessible for people to acquire and trade for what they need with other players. So, anyways, like, I've also got... Like, I'll try to go ahead and... I want to show off this build in action. I'm just kind of also giving you guys an idea, because we're going to go ahead and... I'm going to do a pit with this build. But there's so much when it goes to, like, in this build, in terms of the various different skills and the points I've gotten to them. Like, you mainly put, all, you know, full points into Crushing Hand. You grab some other passives as well. Ravager to be able to dash around, Armored Hide to give yourself defensive as well as more stacks of Resolve and Poison as well as counterattack for defensives, using the Hunter and then we've got Paragon. Like, again, this is stuff that if you want to look it up, look up the Gorilla Crushing Hand build on Max Roll. If you want to see what exactly I'm doing with my build in terms of which Paragon boards, which glyphs. You can see I don't even have my glyphs fully leveled. Like, these two are 63, 58, 53, 53. And you want to get these at least to... Wait, hold on, which one is it? Yeah, at least to not just necessarily just 45, but to, I think, to 46 at least, because then you get the max amount of benefit from these in terms of their radius, so they benefit the most from like everything else around them. So that's going to happen as you continue to level and increase your Paragon. Spirit Hall, Jaguar, and Gorilla are recommended for this build. Mercenaries, this is obviously a spoiler, but I'll show it in the campaign, but these are the recommended mercenaries with this particular choice here in terms of their skills. So, yeah. But again, like, this is stuff that's all laid out in the guide on Max Roll. As you can see here with the vampiric moonrise, aspect there. We've got the Falls of the Crowded Sage aspect on here. We've got Yen's Blessing. We have the Ring of the Midnight Sun, another very important part of this build. It's 47%, so it's not like the best it could be, because obviously if it was 50%, it'd be amazing. But 47% is still pretty good. And then the Band of Redirected Force aspect, critical strike damage, because the thing that's like about this build is like being able to have everything be a guaranteed critical strike as well as overpower. That's part of the reason why this works here. The two of the most important parts about this build is the Rod, where your core skills are now additionally basic skills and free to cast, but deal up to 30% reduced damage based on their vigor cost. When cast to max vigor, your core skills consume all vigor to return to full damage, cast at their largest size, and become guaranteed critical strikes. And that's where the passive comes into play. Increase critical strike damage for each point of vigor that is spent this way. So then you have the Banished Lord's Talisman. After you spend 275 your primary resource, your next core skill is guaranteed to overpower, and your critical strikes that overpower deal more damage. Keep in mind also that we are not only increasing ourselves even more max resource, but also reducing the amount of resource cost for our abilities. So I'm basically able to just, with this build, just hold down the button, which in this case is my right mouse button. Just hold it, and we just keep dashing around and just annihilating things. Like, I went from... Once I made this change with this build, and of course, having the gear really helps. Having the Shroud of False Death helps for mobility, as well as you have more max health. There's another part of this where the more max life I have, and this is part of the way that the Paragon boards work. Where one of the ways that this works in regards to this here, Viscous Shield. You deal more damage for each of your percent of your maximum life that you have as a barrier. So the more maximum life I have as a barrier, the more damage I do. And then we've got, these glyph sockets here with things such as Spirit, with critical strikes. There's some other like legendary nodes here. When you cast 3 of the same Spirit in a row, you restore vigor and deal more damage for 5 seconds. You have a chance to knock down vulnerable enemies and deal increased crowd-controlled enemies. And after moving a portion, a distance, you deal more damage for 10 seconds. It can stack up to 10 times. You can kind of see like the pieces in play here in regards to how this build works. So we have, the more life I have, the more damage I do. I do guaranteed critical strikes, guaranteed overpowered damage. Yeah. So I'm just going to go ahead and hop into... I've done a 100. I've been able to do a 100 on this. I'm just going to show you guys... Let's just do a 90. I'm going to go ahead and... I'll just go ahead and pop a couple. Let's go ahead and do this. And this. And we'll go ahead and do this as well. I could do those, but nah. just to show you guys this build in action, that I do recommend it if you do want to try this out, or if you haven't got into it yet. If you're looking for a build, I would say this is a great build to go ahead and do. Another part of this is that the more stacks of resolve we have, which is what we generate as part of our gorilla part of this build, because stacks of resolve, as you'll see here, give us damage reduction. And direct damage consumes the stacks, but you'll see we're getting things like drive. We are constantly generating a barrier with our damage that we're doing here. We are getting stacks of ferocity, which increase our attack speed. You can see that it's already just like, we're constantly emptying out our vigor bar, and it goes back to full. You see my vigor there? How it's just instantly depleting, but then instantly refilling. And I want to reiterate, like, if you're saying, oh man, you're taking forever to kill some of these things, I want to reiterate, this is not as strong as this build could be. This is like a work in progress, even though I'm kind of essentially done with what I've wanted to accomplish and do in this season on my Spiritborn. My Spiritborn might be, like, done this season, honestly. But, you know, mainly because I've accomplished what I want to. Like, I even collected a reward for doing what's called the Dark Citadel. I don't want to say what that is yet, because that's kind of spoiler stuff, and I want to show that later. But you can see, like, even though this is a weaker version of this build, a version of this build that lets, you know, that is clearly not as strong as it could be, if this was the strongest version of this build, I would be doing even more, like, much more. But that's because you also got to understand that, like, this... I want to remind you that a 90 is a really high version of this, like even on Tormented 4. Like, on Tormented 4, normally, it's like, yeah, like, I'd be annihilating these things, but basically these are, like, Torment 4 enemies, but beefed up even higher. That's how the pit basically works. It's kind of like a greater... It's like the greater rift system in D3. Where again, I'm just going around, not to mention I also have rune words that are giving me the Druid Earthen Bulwark, as you see there. Also, I'm having it where it's giving me like 20% more maximum health, like for 6 seconds, and it just keeps proccing. You can see there on my bars above my, you know, right here as well. If you want to pay attention to how some of the buffs are working. But you can see, like, the massive amounts of, like, AoE damage I'm doing to all these enemies around me. So it, like, does excellent AoE damage. And it can also do really good single target damage. Because I can go into facing a tormented boss. And I could even show this to you guys on camera if I want to. I could go to a tormented boss and annihilate them in just a couple seconds if I wanted to. I don't really want to show them because, again, that's a spoiler. We haven't gotten to that point in the story yet, in the playthrough. But there are, like, I think there are a couple I could show you that you'll probably be able to see, like, I am just able to just completely annihilate them in just a couple seconds by myself. And that's why this is considered a really high tier ranked build. Like, on max roll, I think this was ranked as an S+ build, which is like god tier. Like, even Rax was like making a video promoting like how strong and good this build is, partly because people were upset after the top, you know, the roly-poly build, you know, involving the evade and such, got nerfed by getting fixed. And so people, you know, usually people see a nerf and they're like, oh, it's garbage now. They always overreact in that regard. When in reality, it's not awful. It's just because it's nerfed a bit doesn't mean it's not still good. It's still a good build. It's just not, you know, as overpowered or broken as it was before, but it's still really good. You also see I'm building up a ton of stagger on this boss. The boss is melting and then I stun them in a matter of seconds because I'm also just doing a ton of crowd control. Alright, so now I guess I'll go ahead and level up that one. Why not? But just as a reminder, in case you're wondering about some of the other things that you're seeing in action here that I couldn't show you in town, Harlequin Crest, 20% damage reduction, as well as +4 ranks to all skills. And then the Shroud, one of the things I love about the Shroud is not just the resource generation, but if you haven't dealt damage in the last 2 seconds, you gain stealth and you gain 40% more movement speed. And you get +2 law stats, +1 to all passives. Every single passive you have in your ability tree, you get +1 to that, so you get access to all of them. You also get more life, and you get much more damage on the next attack you do after you enter stealth. It's so good. Yeah, these are, I'm just hoping to just, like, salvage and get what I need from those. But as you can see, that was a 90, and I was just able to just easily go through it without any, like, oh gosh, like, stress or anything. I probably could have even shown you what my stats were, because even in town, you'll see my stats are pretty good. They get much... I'll even keep this screen up when we go... Let's see if we can do that. Do I have what I need? Yeah, I've got 8 hearts. So let's go ahead and go to a... I apologize if I accidentally spoil something here. Unfortunately, I just can't really show this to you without spoiling something, so... So again, I really, you know... I apologize if this is spoiling something later on in the story, but we'll get to what this is later on in the story. Just ignore this. Pretend we haven't encountered that yet, which we actually haven't. My Druid has not encountered that yet. And I will be giving you an update in regards to my Druid as well. So this is not just about my Spiritborn. But you'll even notice here, out of town, all of a sudden now my attack power is, like, much higher. And so is my life. Like, once we are not in town, because I have, like, a full-on barrier now, I'm able to just do a whole lot more damage. My attack power just skyrockets. It's much higher now. You even saw there, it went up to 41,000 at one point. Just to give you an idea as to, like, if you're, like, looking at my attack power and stats there. So here is... a tormented version of Varshan on Torment 4. And I killed him in 2 seconds. Probably not even 2 seconds. Oh, I got a Yule rune. Huh. An Ancient Mother's Embrace. And a Craze of the Dead God. This is actually a pretty great, unique gloves. I like that when you take direct damage, instead of it happening to you all at once, it actually gets distributed to you as poison damage, and then it gets over the next 10 seconds. It's kind of like what Stagger is for Brewmasters in World of Warcraft. Alright, we have enough for one more summon. Let's summon him again. Again, probably just 2 seconds and he was dead. Another Mother's Embrace. Ah, another Tribute of the Titans and a Zek rune. But yeah, I'm basically just kind of like giving you guys an idea of how strong this build is, and this is kind of like where I've gotten my character to. It's a pretty satisfying point to be able to run a build this strong, and I can clear all content in this game now. I can go into the hardest content in this game now on this character with this build, and just continue, if I want to continue getting stronger, because I can still be able to, as you can see, my character's not even like at full strength.
What do you need?
I still have quite a bit of masterworking to do when it comes to my pieces of gear. They don't have the best rolls. One of the reasons why I haven't fully masterworked them is because I've been actually spending what I need to actually re-roll them. Because I've been resetting my masterwork ranks because I've been trying to get the correct rolls on the specific affixes. Like being able to get rolls on this right here. I spent so much resources on this and redoing the ranks because I was trying to get +2 crushing hand, because according to the guide, the more ranks of crushing hand you can do, just the more damage it's going to do. So that's what I've been doing. So that's my Spiritborn, who's essentially has accomplished everything that I want to, other than one thing. There's one thing she has not finished yet, and that is there are these new statues, which are like the Lilith statues in the main game. They're in the new zone. And for some reason, when I try to go find them and collect them, they sometimes bug and don't work. And so I sometimes have to actually, like, quit the game in order to actually get it to actually function, you know? By the way, in case you're wondering about my other characters, this is what they look with the new Warcraft cosmetics. This is my Barbarian with the Garrosh look here. This is our Druid. Now she looks like Malfurion, which I think is much better, and I'll probably be keeping this on her look as we progress the playthrough. This is my favorite. My Necromancer is now the Lich King with Frostmourne. I mean, could there be any more perfect matchup here? The only thing that makes this better is that I also have Invincible. So she can also ride around on Invincible as the Lich King. It's perfect. This is my Sorcerer with the Jaina Mog, as opposed to the Kael'thas one. I went with the Jaina one for now because she has a staff and it's a matching staff. The one that's a little wonky and weird, though, is my Rogue. So this is mainly Illidan, though I actually still have the skin thing from Sylvanas. Because, well, I'll be honest, the Sylvanas one looks better on her, but this is Illidan. You guys know how much I love Illidan, my favorite character in WoW. The only problem is that right now I don't have a good enough bow, and I'm not really doing an archery build. This is one of the Blades of Azzinoth, and that's Fellow Malorn, because it's a dagger for some reason instead of a sword. Like, it's an actual one-handed sword in Warcraft, but in this game it's apparently a dagger for some reason. I don't know why. But I want to give you guys an update also in regards to my Druid, because I did finish getting her from 50 to 60 within the campaign. That took a while. It took me quite a few dungeons just to get her to 60. And the reason I wanted to get her to 60 is because I want to try and get access to some things. But the only way I could do that properly is once I got her to 60. So what I was wanting to use was these. I realized I had max of these obols. And I wanted to... What I learned in the season with my Spiritborn is gambling to hopefully get the Ancestral Legendaries or Uniques. Specific Uniques. And that's what happened, what I did here with my Druid. Now, all the old gear that she had, that's gone. I've basically salvaged all of that old gear, except for these. I haven't done that yet. But, like, you guys remember the Mad Wolf's Glee we were using, where werewolf form was now our true form? Well, I got another of that. It's a more current one, the 750 item power one. But you know what else I got? This! I got Insatiable Fury, which is the Werebear one. So now we can do a full-on Werebear build again. I also ended up getting Vasili's Prayer to be able to have all our Earth skills also be Werebear skills and fortify our health. Plus, it also gives +2 to, well, that doesn't really matter. But because they're also now Werebear skills, they also benefit from this as well. All Werebear skills get +5 ranks. So every Werebear and Earth skill I have gets +5 to their ranks. I've also set it up. I actually also ended up getting this ring as well. Every 30 seconds you spend in an animal form, your next core skill will be guaranteed to overpower and critically strike. Unfortunately, it gave me 36% on that instead of 60%. And casting a shapeshifting skill reduces the timer by 1 second. Keep in mind, this is going to apply to our pulverize, which we're also going to, keep in mind. Also, remember that pulverize will overpower every 12 seconds while we remain healthy, and pulverize deals increased overpowered damage. Plus, we also have the aspect where pulverize does the shockwave. Yeah. And deals more 108% of its damage to targets in its path. It could be 220. I didn't get the best rolls on these, unfortunately, but the fact that I was able to get some of these, it's like, okay, and Pulverize is now also an Earth skill, which of course is also a Werebear skill. And I've been able to set it up where this is going to be our build going forward. You can see the skills we've got down here. Debilitating Roar, which is 6 of 5. Trample, 7 of 5. We got Earth and Bulwark, and we've got Grizzly Rage, which we've gotten back to also having Grizzly Rage's duration be increased. So yeah, I've been able to set it up where we are able to do that again. I got to go back and make sure that I have the proper boons activated for this, because I don't have everything. I got to go back and take care of that. But I've also got my Paragon board set up, but you can see here as well, when you look at the abilities, the amount of benefits that some of our abilities like Maul and Pulverize, and you can see some of these other ones, like if I want to, I could use like a full-on Earth one as well with Stone Burst and Landslide, which are like some of those other ones, Earth and Bulwark. There's the Companion one, we don't necessarily need to do that. And then, of course, there's Boulder as well, and we're able to also utilize Ursine Strength now. And then we've got the Paragon boards, which I've got it set up where it's a few different ones. Obviously, I don't have the glyphs yet. There are some glyphs I do still need to collect, but I can collect them now. Obviously, I want the Werebear glyph, but now that she's 60, she can actually get glyphs to drop from things. But I've grabbed the one where it's when you're in Werebear form, you deal increased damage up to 60% for every difference in current life percent between you and the enemy. Your Earth skills deal increased critical strike damage, increased by 20% of your damage versus crowd controlled, bonus up to 60%. And after shapeshifting, your spirit costs are reduced by 5% for 10 seconds, up to 45% if you reach 10 stacks. This must reset to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate skill. And there is another I could grab to get me the full 5, but honestly, I was like more. Right now, I'm okay with just kind of like having these boards and then just kind of filling out the rest of these boards. You can see I was basically putting points into filling all these out with grabbing all the other nodes that are around these. Like as we get points in the playthrough and continue leveling my Druid with Paragon, I will be putting points in to grab these other nodes down over here as well, which will just give us more damage, more life, more armor. Yeah, more shapeshifting damage, more willpower. So, we'll just continue to get stronger and stronger. Even though we're now running a more tanky build and we'll be permanent Werebear instead of permanent Werewolf, we'll be able to go ahead and do that. So, yeah. That's the update. She's going to look like Malfurion more so now, and she's going to be Werebear again. So, that's something you can look forward to when I am ready to continue the actual playthrough here. I'm not quite ready to come back just yet. I'm doing other stuff, mainly in World of Warcraft right now. But when I return, that is the intended idea of what I'm going to do. If it does change, I will try to make a video letting you guys know about that. So I hope you're looking forward to that. And stay tuned for the continuation of the story of this playthrough and the campaign.